Drug overdose deaths soared to over 93,000 in 2020. That's a 30% increase over the previous year. That's tragic and alarming. But beyond the statistics are the stories of real people, people we love, our families, our friends, our neighbors, who share their stories of pain, grief, and loss and suffering through addiction, as well as the stories of those who work tirelessly to combat this devastating epidemic. I'm Mike Torville. Join me now for Healing Voices Project. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Healing Voices Project, where we share stories of addiction, grief, recovery, and courage. Today we have some special guests, Dennis and Debbie Gonzalez from Hope for Holyoke. And if you're joining us and listened to the first episode, welcome back. Thanks for coming back to us. And we said last episode, we are going to be dedicating each episode to someone we lost to addiction. And this week, we're dedicating this episode to Richard Jenkins, a longtime member of Hope for Holyoke who passed away this past summer. In Richard's honor, if you'd like to donate to the Hope for Holyoke, you can do that by visiting the Gandara Center.org. That's the Gandara Center.org, and look for the donate button, and please make a contribution for Richard Jenkins at the Hope for Holyoke Center. Thank you. And now we can join with Dennis and Debbie Gonzalez. And I will say, first of all, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
A little bit of how we got to know each other a year and a half or two ago, when you both have courageously agreed to volunteer your story in the Voices from the Fallen book that we worked on together. You are Chapter 2. Very exciting, interesting chapter.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you guys have a story to tell. And you've been through a lot, to say the least, for a long time. You certainly can share all kinds of different experiences, not only with your own story, but with what you work with and live with every single day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you're both involved with Hope for Holyoke, the Gandara Center, and also Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
So, we got to know each other through getting this book, and we got to be friends and sort of bonded. It's hard not to with you guys,
You're part of the family now.
Right.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, having been to the center several times now, I can see you guys got a lot of activity going on. So if you want to talk a little bit about Hope for Holyoke, and we'll get into some of the other things you got going on. Yeah.
Well, you can talk more than I can.
Well, it's just interesting. Everything all relates to each other because when I think back, 20 years ago and how our life was, and I wouldn't have wished it upon anyone, yet all of that led to where we are now. And now, we've taken that experience, which was very painful at the time, and now are able to use that to help others. And it's just an amazing thing. So, how we really both ended up at Hope for Holyoke was a result of everything that happened in our life, I believe. And I can honestly say I'm grateful that we went through those things, that we got through those things.
But by the way, not to interrupt, but you not only work there, you actually manage it, you run it.
Yeah, I'm the director over at Hope for Holyoke. I like to say I'm the director, but I'm also a member.
Yeah, I'm a member.
He is a member now.
I used to work for a long time ago.
That was not so good.
Yeah.
Now you're back to work now.
Yeah, I went back to work at Holyoke Hospital ED, and what I do down there is actually I'm a recovery coach, so my position down there at the ED is that when people come in with overdose or even now alcohol problems, my job is to see if I can get them into treatment, you know what I mean, and start that process for them. So as a recovery coach working in the ED, it's totally different when you're working in outpatient, because you're in outpatient, you're dealing more with people that already are in or establishing their recovery already, where in the ED, they're raw. They actually don't really care about recovery at that time. All they want to do is to get well and not to feel sick, and so my job is to hopefully convince them that that this is a path that they can take quickly. And a good thing about the Holyoke Medical emergency room is that we also have a clinic on the 4th floor that if they choose, anybody has any opiate issues, they can, if they choose it, we can set it up so they can go upstairs on the 4th floor so they can get Suboxone that same day. Immediately,
Yep.
right? I'm not saying I'm a doctor, but usually I go to the doctor and I tell the doctor, okay, this is a good candidate for Suboxone, and the doctor says, okay, how much do I give him? I'm like, you're the doctor, you should know. but he goes up based on what I say, and then he gives the patient the Suboxone, and then from there we try to work out the logistics for the person to start in the clinic upstairs in the 4th floor.
Now, glad you brought that up. You mentioned doctors, and there's a story you told me, and it stuck with me because I repeat it a lot, about an encounter you had with a doctor a couple years ago, where you had this sort of a revelation because, well, you tell the story.
Well, okay, so what happened was I remember one night I'm working at the emergency room. I met with a doctor, and as time we actually started to become friends, and she divulged some personal issues with herself, what she was going through with her husband, and so she wanted my advice, and I said, okay, sure. So as time went on, we were talking about certain things that she could probably do. Now, she was on the verge of getting a divorce from her husband because she felt that there was no way out of it. Her husband was addicted to, I forgot, Adderall or something like that, and so I'm not an expert on the Adderall, but I know that if it has anything to do with addiction, I try to help as much as I could. So, we bonded and we kept on talking about it. And then finally, as a Christian man that I am, and I come to find out that she was a Christian too. And so, we kept on talking, and then, she's told me a lot about her personal life and how she was really upset because of her husband, not trying to move forward from it. He was in that stage of denial, and so I was able to tell her stories about my own life and stories about Deb, and I could see Deb in her, you see, and so what it made it much easier for me to really relate to her because I'd seen her as like Debbie and what Deb went through with me, you know what I mean, and so we were able to do that, and then at the end. I remember she wanted to pray, and so now we're right in the middle. We call it the bubble. This is right in the middle of the ED, and we're praying. And I'm saying my prayer, long-winded one like I always do, and then after that, I look up, and the chief medical doctor was there, and he looked at me. He's like, and I was thinking to myself, like, God, I'm in trouble now. But he wasn't. He said, what are you, a pastor now? And I'm like, listen, I'll save a soul any way I can. I don't care what it was. And he said, well, okay, well, I got a couple over here that you need to save, you know what I'm saying? So it worked out okay that I was able to. And, going back, because I just started about a week ago, this week I started to go back to the ED because of, in January we had COVID. And I was in the ICU for, like 30 days. And so, through my medical issues and stuff like that, not just me, my whole family, my grandson that was only 3 months old at the time. So, through that whole process, it still, what it did was it showed us what we can overcome too. Not just addiction, but other things in our lives too. I think having the knowledge of recovery in our lives also gave us that hope with God that we could overcome this too. And we did.
You did, and I know you were right on the edge there.
Yes, I was.
First weekend of January.
First week.
I remember that, and that just within a day it just knocked you out.
Knocked me right out.
You were in the hospital for over a month. And then went back again.
Many times.
She could tell you that. I was in and out most of the time.
Really, but you're here now.
That's right. That's right.
And back to work.
Good thing is I'll plug it in. I went to Mass General in Boston, and they were able to put a little machine in my chest now where I can breathe, walk, do anything I want. I can walk through Walmart, everything. So I feel great about it, what I mean? And it actually gives me more inspiration of what I do at the ED now. The good thing is when I went back this week, people were coming up and, oh my God, Dennis, and they were shocked. They were shocked to see me, you know what I mean? Because they seen me when I came in. Because, understand, when I contacted COVID, I went to the same place where I worked at. So everybody knew me.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so everybody knew me. And so everybody saw, you know, how I was when I had COVID. And then now seeing me now, they're like, you're a miracle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You were laid out.
Yeah.
For the count. When you mentioned something, I don't want to forget to mention this, because you mentioned that doctor, and one of the things you said that stuck with me is what you had discovered through talking with her is that she was dealing with her husband's addiction and didn't know what to do.
Exactly.
She was at a loss for how to work through it, and you thought, wait, she's a doctor.
That's right.
She prescribes medicine. She's been trained, and yet she doesn't know what to do herself.
Yeah.
So how are we, who aren't trained the same way, how are we supposed to know what to do?
Yeah.
And that to me was a revelation for me to say, you know what? How would you know?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because one thing is that the good thing working in the ED, it's not just about dealing with the patient. It's also educating the medical staff on how to treat people, because sometimes what happens is that they it's a sad thing, but it's still out there. Stigma is still out there,
right?
And especially in the medical field. And so our job is to not just to take care of the patient, but it's also to educate, like I said, the medical staff to see that that's a human being, you know. And then the good thing is, I always say that I am that human being, you know, and to treat a person like that, because I remember when I first came in, they used to say, yeah, he's a repeat offender.
Oh.
And I would go, and now I knew what they meant, you know, but I would be naive and say, what do you mean about that? What's that? Well, you know, he's come here all the time. I'm like, wow. I said, I don't think that's nice to say. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a human being. And they were, oh, come on. I'm like, no, you have to understand. And so after a while, me being there, they would change their vocabulary towards. And that's what we want to establish in the ED, that these are souls. These are lost souls that are coming into and whether they come one time or 100 times, they're seeking help. And that's what we try to do.
And addiction is a chronic disease. I mean, this is
they say.
It just doesn't go away. No.
Right.
The medical field has said that this is a disease, not us. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a doctor. And that's the part that I try to remind them. You guys said that this was a disease. So let's work on it. You know what I mean? Because I go in there and I'm a diabetic. If I go in there, they're going to treat me with the most respect. And they're going to give me every care that I need. Yeah. Now, if I go in there because I overdose, now it changes it. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's tough. So that's
even
why
with medical professionals.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to work in the emergency room because of that.
Well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about your earlier experiences, how it all started, and I know if I say let's go, and I've gotten to know you well, we'll be here till.
Oh God, please
read the book, chapter 2.
Just read the book. It's better that way. You're right.
Right. But if we could give a little bit of how it started, so anyone listening will say, okay, I get it, because sometimes they say, you know what, I've seen that same path, the same progression. And so how it started, you were a teenager, and then how things developed.
So growing up in the north end of Springfield, I used to watch my dad, and like I said, my dad was the neighborhood pot dealer, and so I saw him as a kid. I saw how he used to get the respect, and people would respect him and look at him, and I said, well, I want that. You know what I'm saying? And very insecure at a young age, you know what I mean? And being bullied, and then became a bully. I started to fall into that same pattern of my dad. And so, I used to go and, steal his pot and go sell it. And then, it evolved.
What were you, about 14?
Around 14. Yeah. Around 14. And the thing about it, like Deb cracks up, because, at that time I was very good in football. You know what I mean? And, I was the first Hispanic in Western Mass
football player. Yes, we all know the story.
Yes.
You've heard it once?
Oh yeah.
My grandkids say, "Oh yeah." Well,
even the grandkids, we know.
Yeah. And so then, after that, you know, that, you know, evolved into more things, and you know, forgetting about school. I mean, I managed to actually graduate high school and, you know, and get a diploma, but, you know, it just escalated, and then, you know, selling drugs, and then after you finish school, then I found out that if you do sell drugs, guess what happens? You get arrested and you go to jail, and, you know, all these experiences I was going through.
How did you find that out?
Well, you know, the thing about that is that, you know, selling drugs, and all of a sudden someone sets you up, and the next thing you know, they're knocking on my door. Hey, we have a warrant for your arrest, and then the next thing you know, you have to go to court, and that to me was something like, man, you know, this doesn't, that's not part of the deal that I was trying to do. I just wanted to be like my dad and have the respect.
You were in jail?
Yeah.
What age were you in jail first time?
I think the first time I went to jail was probably like 18.
All right.
18, 19, around there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, little bids here and there and stuff like that. I mean, when we got together, I went to jail too.
But after you went to jail, you learned a lesson, you straightened yourself out, and everything was good after that.
No, I learned better how to sell drugs.
Yeah, really.
That's you know, jails. I'm not saying that all jails are like that, but the one I went to, yeah, they taught me how to be a better drug salesman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But you raise a good point, because, you know, those things would happen. Go to jail, go to treatment, go, you know, or we would move. We moved a lot. We did a lot of geographical cures, you know, thinking, well, if we move over here, maybe it'll be better. But unfortunately, we took us with us, you know, so it wasn't better.
Escape.
And kids involved.
And the kid, then we had children, and that cycle just continued and continued. It's like what we were talking about. There was no, you know, instruction manual on how to do this as a couple, as a, you know, and I brought my own stuff into the relationship as well. You know.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you got out of jail. You started having kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I met Debbie through a friend.
Yeah.
Through a friend that.
And we were out drinking, and that's how it all started.
That's how we started. That's how we met, at a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, at an early, you know, young age that we were, you know, partying. You know, we felt that was good. We weren't hurting anybody. You know.
Right.
Even though I wasn't working, Debbie was working 3 jobs, but, you know.
Oh, well, you had your job.
I had my job. That's right.
Did, that's right.
I was I sold marijuana products at the basketball court on a 9 to 5 basis.
And by the way, didn't you drop him off in the morning?
Yes.
Who wouldn't be attracted to that?
Exactly. That's what happened.
Yeah.
They'll tell you a little bit about my dysfunction.
Yeah. And, you know, and the guys were happy. They were looking at me like, wow, man, you got it going on, Dennis.
But you were selling drugs at the basketball court. You're smoking pot. You're doing that. And how did that lead to heroin?
Well, see, I had tried heroin way before I met Debbie one time. And, you know, my older brother, you know, God bless his soul, he's not with us anymore. He was a heroin addict for many, many years. And so I would always say that I would never try that. So one day a gentleman came up and he gave me, you know, this powder, and I said, what is it? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. And, you know, at that time, listen, I probably took every kind of drug that was out there. So I said, why not? And I took it, and, you know, I didn't like the feeling the first time. So I left it alone. And then, you know, continue always smoking pot and selling pot continuously. That was my way of always knowing that I could have income. And then as we got together, a friend came over again, and he said, hey, Dennis, you know, I know where there's some good, you know, bags of heroin down the road in the south end. And I said, well, here you go get some. And then that's when it really hit the fan. It really, I mean, you know, that's when, back then when I tried it once, that was nothing. But when the second time I tried it, it was like that lost little thing that I needed in my life to fill my void at the time, which was false. And then, you know, not knowing, because she, you know, I came from the project, she came from the suburbs, and so, you know, it took her a while to really realize that, you know.
To detect it.
Exactly. Yeah. And she could tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, things were progressively getting worse, but it just started well, we partied. That's what we did. I always did too, because trust me, I was a willing participant, and we drank a lot. We smoked marijuana. We did a little coke, and then we did a lot of coke, and
not a little.
but we kind of functioned, and even he worked and I worked, and we were somewhat functional, but the heroin was a game changer.
Yeah.
I do have to say, and then it just progressively got worse and quickly. And we really just didn't know what to do. We did everything wrong. We had a couple more kids, and always trying to find something to make it better, and nothing really worked. Until we really made a big change, and that wasn't for many years later. We had times where we weren't together, and then times where he was in jail, and we had periods of homelessness, and I mean, just everything that you could imagine could happen. And it was really hard and really painful. And then, I didn't even tell a lot of my family about it. And we hid it from people. I hid it from my job and everything. And
I think there was a lot of shame. There was,
and it was the stigma then was even more. It was really, people didn't talk about this.
And you didn't have as many resources then as you do now.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And we didn't know. Even for family members, you had no idea. That there was non-existent. We didn't know anything about how to maneuver this as a family, as a couple. And now it's interesting because the lessons we've learned, we now can give that to other people, especially couples. Most people say, how are you guys still together?
Yeah.
How do people that we see
that we know still that were in our lives in the past?
Yeah, they're like, wow,
you guys are still together. I'm like, actually, her friend that introduced me to Deb, she's amazed that we're still together.
Yeah.
And and Deb's right. I remember periods of sobriety, and that's when I would get my act together and get a job. Like I said, I even drove buses. In the book, it tells you. I became a bus driver for this company, which I'll not mention, and then.
They may still be looking for him.
They still be like, if they read the book, they're probably ready to put me in jail again. But anyways, I drove for them for about almost a year, and I started in sobriety. I was in in recovery at that time, and then but not having any tools. You see, because we thought that by just working and living the norm life,
right? Yeah. Which wasn't normal at all.
No, it was never normal. Right.
Yeah. That was the big difference. I think we had the periods of sobriety, but not recovery.
Not recovery.
Exactly. And that's what we had to really learn. So now we don't have any secret. There isn't any. I mean, just lessons learned. But when we talk to other couples now, the one thing that stands out for us is that when we finally the last time kind of got it together and I'd said, that's it, I'm done. And he said, I'm done too. We got to stop this kind of life. We committed to each other and to God that we were going to stay apart for a year.
Oh, year.
And just work on ourselves. And literally, that's what we did. He was living in a halfway house. I was, with our then older children.
Exactly.
And we worked on ourselves. And then we started talking to each other and, attending maybe church together. And that's how we found Celebrate Recovery and got very involved in that. And that began, we began to really heal and find recovery. And then it stuck. And we never turned back since then.
No, never. I mean, I think I was like, when I actually stopped everything, I was around 40 years old.
40.
And so
so you had about 20 years of this.
Right.
About 20, about 20 years of this stuff.
That.
And I stopped around when I was 40, and like Deb said, we decided to, and the thing was that we knew about God, but we really didn't know about what God could do. You see what I'm saying? And so I went first to the church that I belong to now, which I'll plug in, Life Point Church. And what happened there was I went in and I went to a meeting. Now, I always tell people that there was a gentleman named Frank, and he was like my God's angel sent to me. He was in a halfway house with me, and he told me if I was interested in going to a meeting that night. Now, just before that, I was in the detox, and this is the first time ever I actually asked God for help. And I told God, I'll do anything you want. Actually, I did the Monty Hall thing, I'll take whatever's behind door number 2, God, if you give it to me. And so this gentleman came to me, and he actually told me, and I said, okay, God, I guess this is what you're trying to tell me. So I said, sure, I'll go, And he said, the difference is it's a Christian, recovery meeting. I'm like, I'm thinking, dude, I've been to Salvation Army from here to Florida. You're gonna tell me, I know these things. So I went, and I never left, man. I never left, and I met beautiful people there. At first, I thought it was like a little Stepford kind of wife thing, because I said, there's no way people could be so happy. But it wasn't happy, it was joy.
It was genuine happiness.
It was.
Genuine. That's where I met a lot of good people.
And you got introduced to Celebrate Recovery.
Exactly. Exactly.
He was going there and Celebrate Recovery, and then went up to church and started attending the church. In the meantime, I was just living my life. Really didn't want anything to do with him. I was kind of done, And he kept saying, "Hey, you should come over here. It's really nice. There's good people." And I was like, "Yeah, right. Okay, whatever. You found Jesus now, And I'm sure that was
another act.
Yeah, right. And finally gave into it just one day, and just to get him off my back, said, all right, I'll meet you at the church, Go into the church, I'll never forget it. And now, this is the pastor, we're good friends with everybody there now, and the pastor who we're friends with to this day, I just remember him looking right at me, or so I thought, and giving a message all about forgiveness. And, I'm like, who told him all about me, that I was here and coming today? And, it was totally God. And, I just had so much anger and unforgiveness in me. And this is what I see with people, even at Hope for Holyoke, the people who come in there, their families they're not there yet. So we have a place where we can go and not judge them, where it's okay if you made 100 mistakes, and it's okay if you're trying again, good for you, and we got you, and you've got to give it time, and that's what we needed. We needed time, and we needed a lot of other things, that the support of friends and God, and then a great program like Celebrate Recovery that brought the two worlds together. So we knew about AA, NA, and certainly had both done that. But it didn't have the real component of a relationship with
spirituality.
God. Yeah,
and that's and it's like Deb says at the center. You can't start recovery if you're dead or something like that.
Right. So we got to start there sometimes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my thing is that I look at it in the concept of how an individual comes in broken. And then Deb looks at it in the concept of family members and what they deal with. So when we combine them two, it's a very powerful force for people to see that this is what the family has to do, and the individual that is broken and who's causing the chaos, this is what they have to do. You see, and between that, they can combine it and get together, and hopefully the success is that they achieve the goals that they really want in life. You see, but it's like other people feel that you have to do it for yourself and forget about the family. We believe that it's not like that, because the disease of addiction affects every single person in your family.
Well, speaking of family and kids, you've got some kids and grandkids. And you were still going through your addiction when you had your kids and they were young. So that's really tough to manage. And what kind of effect do you think it had on your kids over time when they were growing up and dealing with all this?
Well, Deb can talk a little bit more, because I was always in and out of the picture. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's probably the hardest part. And, there's still guilt and, things that we go through even today as they're really well-functioning adults. So I think, but every now and then I'll be like, oh, wow, that struggle is because of what we did. And, and it's hard because I wish they didn't have to see. any of the things that they saw in us and experienced. But on the other side, they now see, two different people.
Exactly.
And they've been able to, and nothing we could have said would have convinced them it's going to be different this time. We've changed. It was just they observed and they had to see our walk and see the change in us.
Right.
And then, through time, they started to trust us again, and they were coming to us with things, and
especially me.
Yeah, it was a big thing.
I lost trust with all of them, all my kids, and as time went on, they, because they were a little, saying, okay, Dad, what's this God thing? What are you trying to play on us now? You know what I mean? And thank God for having mentors in my life and people that would help me when I had any mental breakdown. I could tell I had these 4 ladies that nursed me every time. I would cry. I was not well. I mean, they would tell me everything's gonna be, and I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know. I hate myself. And these ladies were the ones that were actually giving me comfort at the time when I really needed it, because I was really looking comfort from Deb and my family, but I abused that. So God was able to place these women in my life. You know what I mean? And also the husbands to give me that comfort. You know what I mean? And so I felt better. You know what I'm saying? And then one thing that my sponsor and my mentor always told me was that I need to step out of the way and let God do the work, because I'm always the type that I want to fix it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think one of your sponsors is how we met.
Exactly.
And that would be my Uncle George.
That's right.
And
Aunt
Marilyn.
Marilyn.
Aunt
That's
Marilyn,
right.
who are very active in the Life Point Church, but also with Celebrate Recovery.
Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's who George is one of the first guys you met. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I entered Celebrate Recovery, George was the first one, and and like I always say, God has a way of putting people in your life, and He put George, and he's still been in my life. He feels that he's still my sponsor. I'm like, dude, you're my dad now. You know what I'm saying? And because we've gone vacation with each other, we've done everything, and just to, I don't want to say mimic, but just to watch how they lived their life. George and Marilyn gave us the understanding that we could do it too. You know what I mean? Here's an older couple that went through struggles, and from George's aspect, he stopped when he was 50. So I'm thinking, well, I stopped 40, he stopped 50. There's hope, you see. And so watching him and him mentoring me, him telling me all the time, you need to stop, you need to let it go, and I'm like, but I can. And he's like, no, you got to understand, God has a way for everything. And as time went on, we built a good relationship. And George already knows that if I call him, he knows something's up. I'll go, hey, what's up, George? Okay, what's the problem? And I'm like, no, I just called and say, no, you didn't. What's up? You know what I mean? Well, this is what's happening. You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, it was great to, because I know I talk a lot about God, because to me, that is the most important part of our life today, having a spirituality of having God in our life, and there's the way that recovery is set up today, there's multiple pathways.
Right.
We're just one out of many. You see, but for us, it works.
And the thing is, often heard and said and repeated, the program, the best program is the one that works. Pretty simply put, but not everything works for everybody.
That's right.
And so you go, and so there's some failures along the way.
Of course.
I don't like to call them failures, but setbacks and
hiccups, I call it.
Hiccups. Yeah. But you found your path that has worked.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And especially at Hope for Holyoke, you see as different as personalities are with people, their families and their priorities is different as a program might be, because you don't know what's going to resonate with somebody.
Right. But one of the things that you said too was seeing like George and Marilyn for us gave us hope, and now we give that hope to others. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It actually, Hope for Holyoke, the name Hope for Holyoke was given through the members when they have these recovery centers, peer recovery centers in the state. And they start out with no name because they wait until the community of members and it starts to take on their identity, and then they come together and they name it. And people in the Holyoke, at that time that became, and Richard Jenkins was one of those people who we dedicated this to today. Yeah. He, came together and said, you know what? People think that Holyoke is this hopeless place, and we think there's hope for Holyoke, and somehow it came around like that, Yeah. I think at first they were thinking Rays of Hope, and that was already taken, But
true.
That's how the name came about, and it's just, it always comes back to that for us, like what people need hope. First thing, like when you feel hopeless, nothing's going to happen. And then we have these many pathways to recovery.
Exactly.
That, it may start as one thing, and but first they need that hope. And then they find whatever it is, whether it's, AA or NA or refuge recovery. It's a Buddhist path, smart recovery. There's, some people do it through exercise. There's a great program in the state called the Phoenix, which is a gym.
Yeah.
Which is exercise, and it's actually free membership into a gym if you're just a day in recovery.
That's right.
And we're hoping to get that out here in the West, but they have several of them in the East.
I will not be a member.
You're not interested in that pathway, right? No. But there's so many different things that can be done. And we actually brought Celebrate Recovery is now offered at Hope for Holyoke as well.
And that's a national program.
Yes. It is, yes. It's a national program. So we were leaders in Life Point Church for many years, Celebrate Recovery. And then, when we started getting involved in Hope for Holyoke, and the members there, the peer community there was strong, had Christian roots. It's very Hispanic, and there's a lot of Christianity and spirituality there. And they were kind of like, we want something that's more than just a 12-step higher power, because we identify our higher power as this, and so they had talked about having a group specific to that, and that's how kind of Celebrate Recovery came in there. And it's very unique because it's a Celebrate Recovery in this area that doesn't take place in a church. And I think it's really a great thing, because in churches sometimes people that go to the church may see the need and go to Celebrate Recovery, but we're getting people that may not have any relationship with God that just come into a meeting and kind of get more than what they bargained for.
Exactly.
And it starts to stir things up and maybe reconnects them with the relationship they had with God, or just helps them further in their recovery. So a lot of people start out with NA or AA and other 12-step programs or treatment, and then as they move through their recovery, think I need something more to really strengthen it, and then come to Celebrate Recovery and strengthening a relationship with God.
I think you made a few really good points. One that sticks out is, if you say, hey, let's meet at the church, and some people who don't just say, no. Like you'd said, now he found Jesus. All right, so now is this a phase? Or it's not for me. I didn't grow up with it. So some people might just be a little apprehensive about it.
Yes.
But I've had, even in the book, there's a couple of examples of one, Bart, who's in the book, and he was in jail, and somebody said this, hey, come to a meeting, we have a prayer group, we have a Bible study, and he said, no.
Yeah.
And the guy says, oh, come on, join me. He says, why not? He says, you know why? Because I'm an atheist, that's why.
That's right.
You have a hard time convincing me to attend that meeting.
That's right. That's right.
He ultimately convinced him to go to that meeting.
Of course.
And but I think part of it is with Bart, like in many others, they say, nothing else has worked. What have I got to lose?
Oh,
That's right.
And then they find their place.
That's right.
And it does work. So, but it's not for everybody, but it's always worth looking at, keeping an open mind.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people come to the Celebrate Recovery at Hope for Holyoke because we offer a meal before it.
I always
You
say,
need a
if
hook.
you feed them,
If you feed them, they will come.
They will stay.
And that's it. We're like, whatever gets them there. And, they don't even know. We also serve a very big homeless population. People,
Exactly.
if you want to talk about people with no hope, they're out there struggling with addiction, homeless, and in a pandemic, this has happened. I mean, it was really, really difficult.
Really
and
bad.
so coming just for a hot meal and then, hey, why don't you stay for the meeting? You know, some people try to slip out, but eventually they stay, you know, and it's just what happens at Hope for Holyoke all the time. People come for the coffee, and, you know, I always say the coffee isn't that good.
Exactly.
You probably get a better cup at Dunkin'.
It's someplace warm to go.
It's warm to go, and you feel the love, and you're accepted.
Yeah, and you know, and you've seen this. So much going on every single day. You live it 24/7. You know, and if you certainly can see the changes too. You can see 20 years ago, like you said, the education, the opportunities. There's more awareness. We still have a long way to go. But I think what happens is a lot of people who don't know, don't have the information. That's why I encourage people, go online and visit the Gandara Center, visit Hope for Holyoke, because you get information. Because a lot of families say, I had no idea what to do, and then we made decisions that ultimately proved to do more harm than good.
Exactly.
Without the right information.
And that's why I said the internet is like the best thing that I guess man invented right now, because when we were struggling, there was really that would give us an indication, people indicate our age, but there wasn't. I think it was AOL. You know what I mean? And then you hear that sound, woo, yeah. So but they had nothing about recovery in it. You know what I'm saying? So it was. Now you just pick up that little piece of plastic metal thing and boom, boom, and you can get any information you want.
There's a lot more resources for families too. I know when I was, coming up new in this, all we really knew about was Al-Anon. People know Al-Anon, maybe a little bit on Nar-Anon, whatever. But there's so much more in this area. We have a great group called Learn to Cope. It's Massachusetts has this wonderful program, and there are online meetings as well. There's one in Spanish in Springfield. There's one that takes place over in Holyoke at what used to be Providence Hospital, and learntocope.org. You can find it, and that is a great resource for family members.
Exactly.
Anyone, a parent, a spouse, a partner, a friend,
and that's
a child.
Learn to with the number 2.
Yes, with the number
Cope.
2. Cope. Yes, you found that out, right?
Yep.
Great. It's a great organization, and and it's a little sometimes some of the other groups will have just one kind of tough love approach, and we're learning that may not be the best thing for everybody.
Exactly.
Just like there's different paths to recovery. Well, every family's not going to deal with it the same, and it doesn't always help to throw someone out. That might be what you need to do, but it doesn't always help. And then there may be other things that you can do, and learning about that is important. That's also one of the benefits of a program like Celebrate Recovery, because it's not just for people struggling with addiction. Hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Exactly. So you talk about codependency and,
could be gambling,
depression, all of those things. Like, who doesn't have a hurt, habit, or hang-up in life, right?
And so, what is the website for Celebrate Recovery?
Oh yeah, that's a national website, and it actually has a map too that shows all of
the different chapters.
Exactly.
CelebrateRecovery.org.
We're actually on there now. We're actually Hope for Holyoke is on. If you look in the Massachusetts part, we're actually you can put our in and you'll get 100 Suffolk Street, Hope for Holyoke, where we have a meeting there, and it's but it's actually the Hope Celebrate Recovery started a long time at Saddleback Church. I think that was in Arizona or something like that, where Jim Baker and who's the other gentleman?
Well, it's based on the book by Rick Warren, Purpose-Driven Life, which is a great book to read, and it's kind of stemmed from Rick Warren's book that just said, I think the first line of Purpose-Driven Life is, I can't do it, or it's not about me, something like that. And don't quote me, because it is true. It's there are so many things beyond our control. Whether you're suffering from addiction or you're a family member. But the good news is you don't have to do it alone. There is support, and there is hope.
Alone doesn't work well.
Alone does not work well.
And that's why, now me and Deb, we kind of mimic Jim Baker and his wife, because they do their testimony together.
Okay.
And so me and Deb decided one time, you know something, we should do ours together. And we do that, and we go around to different churches when they ask us, and we actually give our testimony on how it was as a couple. You see, so this way, couples that are struggling can see, you see, how, the struggle we went through, but also it shows them how we were able to overcome, with God's help in our lives. And so that, to me, is a blessing in itself, that we can now share our basically grief and also our success at the same time.
Yeah, and your story obviously is in the book and on the website too, the healingvoicesproject.com website. Your story's on there as well. So there's more to it than what we discussed here.
Exactly, much more.
And I know, as I said, we could go on and on. We'll have to have you back again.
Okay,
sure. We'd love to.
But thanks for joining us. Is there anything that you any other things you want to share with the audience? Anything that pops into your head before we?
I did want to just share. There's an event coming up actually. So, there's a movie called "Same Kind of Different as Me," and it kind of tells different recovery stories from different perspectives, but just how much in common we have. And they're going to be premiering that. Actually, the proceeds, it's a benefit for a great organization called Providence Ministries. And Providence Ministries is, they do a lot in the community of Holyoke, basically. But they have a men's sober home, and they have a soup kitchen that runs in Holyoke that serves a hot meal every day at noon.
Exactly.
And they serve an awful lot of people. And they have a lot of really great services, a shelter. So they are having this event on the 28th at the Basketball Hall of Fame.
October 28th, the Basketball Hall of Fame.
And you can purchase tickets online at www.provministries.org, provministries.org. And you can get a ticket there. It's like a red carpet screening and for the movie, and a great way to support this organization. We have a lot of people that live at Providence Ministries that come to Hope for Holyoke, and are starting their lives of recovery and are very active in the groups and things that take place. One of them actually is a guy who does a book club, and he was in we did Voices of the Fallen for our book club at Hope for Holyoke, and it was great. It was one of the best attended. We actually did it when we were still hybrid, so we had zoomed in and had some live in the center, and read the whole book, and had there's great discussion questions also at the end of each chapter, so we could have a really good, rich discussion about the chapters.
Yeah,
as well.
You can make up a lot of your own questions too.
Yes, definitely can.
Well, thanks. Do you guys need more books?
Oh yes, always.
Yes, always. We can always use more books. That's true.
All right. Well, again, thank you both for coming.
Thank
it was
you so
great
much.
having you. And remember, GandaraCenter.org and CelebrateRecovery.org.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll be talking. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.